So, I would like to call this meeting to order. It's 10 o'clock, Tuesday, May 26th. And if you would, I'll lead you in the pledge and then we'll go from there. Me and Tim are present today and Tommy's unavailable. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. This work session 2A, information, discussion, action to accept grants from the Universal Services Administrative Company, USAC E-Rate, and Arizona Department of Education state match funding in the total amount of up to $19,817,930.06 for the Gila County Information Education Technology Consortium. So today we have Mr. Roy Sandoval and Jackie Sanders. Good morning, Roy.
This is my partner. Anyway. That's all right. We grew up together. I'm so pleased, and quite frankly, I was stunned when I got the word on this. I couldn't think for an hour. I really couldn't. My wife says, well, it's been longer than that. It's been 38 years, but we are so pleased to present this to you, and I hope you'll give me just a short time to talk a little bit about the history. Some of you may know, but we actually started this process. We met here with Mylan Eaton, the state director for E-Rate, in 2017. It was November of 2017, and it was too late for us to really, time was on the line to put together a consortium. So we threw in with Navajo, and they were kind enough to take us. At that point, we really didn't have any idea of how to run this deal. But we threw in with them, and we learned a great deal. It ended up not quite panning out with that partnership altogether. But Jackie and I talked, and we called Mylan and said, what do you think if we put together a consortium for Gila County? And he said, you need to do it. I'll give you all the support I can. And we were able to put together this consortium and hire a consultant, a top-notch consultant called Get Funded, John Egan, and his associate, Don Palermo. So now you fast forward, it's November of 2018. And we had already gathered signatures from boards, had them approve things, and everybody was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this again. And even to us, it was difficult. We thought this is just almost insurmountable. But we committed ourselves to doing everything as perfectly as we possibly could in terms of procurement and our procedures. We met numerous times. We took a lot of direction from experts and support from experts, and it just seemed like it went on forever. And pretty soon it was November 2019, and we were asking, are we still even in the records? It'd been 2 years. And away we came, and all of a sudden, a couple weeks ago, we got this funding letter. And I made this, there was all this dialogue. I finally just said, well, somebody just tell me we're funded. And they said, yeah, you're funded for $19 million, almost $20 million. We are so thankful. There's so many people to thank. Mylan has been so supportive. You guys allowed us to do this in 2017 and then again in 2018. And I'm so excited because each of your communities, each part of the county is going to benefit from this. The kids and the libraries will benefit, and I would wager to say that the entire community will eventually benefit from this to a great degree. So we thank you for allowing us, putting your trust in us, and allowing us to pursue this. Get Funded was right there with us. I had no idea. I said it over and over and over again. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Just tell me the right direction to go. So my partner, the brains of this here outfit, as I say, in detail, and that was part of you guys allowing us to use the county for procurement. Mary Springer and her department, Jackie working with them. So all this sort of team effort came together to make this happen, and will continue as we go through now the construction phase and implementation phase. Thank you so much for your support, and I feel like people were just sort of cheerleading the whole time, right? James, thank you for putting your trust in us. And so I'd like to ask you to accept this, and we'll proceed. And
Mylan's on the call.
And Mylan is on the call too. Mylan, you have anything you need to say, want to say?
Yeah, Roy. Supervisors, I'm just beyond ecstatic to be here. The support from Roy and Jackie and the work they put into this project to bring, the broadband infrastructure into the county is amazing. And Roy said it's truly going to benefit everyone in the county, all the businesses. It's even going to get down to the point it'll benefit the residences as well. So this is one of those projects that it was a once-in-a-generation opportunity. You guys took advantage of it, and, I'm just glad I was here to provide the support. And now the hard part starts. We start the construction phase, which is building fiber all over the county, both the northern half and the southern half. So it's we have a lot of work left to do, but we're ready to get started now.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Chairman and Supervisor Humphrey. So some of the details include that we also owe a huge thanks to Mylan Eaton and the State Department of Education, who had the foresight about 4 years ago to start crafting a pot of money that could be match money for these rural projects. When USAC, when the federal level, provides a grant of either somewhere between 80 and 90% for this kind of a construction project, that still leaves the rural area on the hook for somewhere between 10 and 20%, which is a big number when it's a $19 million project. And so under Mylan's direction, first the governor, and then I believe the Corporation Commission and the Department of Education had created a pot of money for match money for these kind of projects. And so when we talk about it being fully funded, it means at no schools and libraries and Gila County will have no cost, no match associated with it, because the state has match money to make the match. And so we owe him a debt of gratitude and a thanks as well. And I just want us to be sure and we recognize that. And Mylan will also serve as de facto project manager, because somebody has to make sure the work happens. And so we actually, as a county, won't receive the actual dollars. It just is being spent on our behalf. And Mylan will kind of serve as project manager, coordinator, and then Roy and I will assist in that.
Good.
So I would just add one more thing that I think is important. Imagine that during this critical period, when schools and libraries are forced to do things online, when the bandwidth is limited all over the country and all over the county to these rural children, at that critical moment when everything is needed, this has come through, and we're going to be able to provide the kind of bandwidth that's necessary to I think, move where we need to move in terms of education and library services. It's just so exciting and so timely. So thank you. With that, we end.
You guys, huge thank you for this. You too, Mylan. This is really, really good. I remember when it all started, and broadband's been up high on the priority list for a long time, and money's been hard to get. So I understand totally what you say about everybody will benefit from this. So my question would be is, once this is through the process here, what kind of time frame are we going to be looking at, for this to really get started and construction start?
You know, they were just, the company Sparklight was chomping at the bit. They said, we want to start right now. We said, well, we need to go to the board of supervisors. Mylan might have a better idea of what a project like this might take in terms of duration.
That's a good idea. I'm guessing 8 to 12 months. Mylan, do you know a timeline?
You know, we've been working. We started the program in 2017. Apache County and Yavapai County were the first two counties that we started on. Yavapai County we finished in about 14 months. Apache County we started in 2017. We're wrapping it up the end of next month. So it really depends on some of the challenges they run into with permitting. Permitting is the biggest challenge. In Apache County, we had a lot of reservation land, which the permitting was a little bit, it's kind of lengthy. We also had some federal land, so the permitting was lengthy. Gila County, I don't see it being as bad. So I suspect that somewhere between 16 and 24 months, we'll be finished with the complete build.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Good deal. Thanks, you guys. Tim, you have questions or comments?
I don't have any questions, but I have comments, and you know, you're thanking us. We're thanking you very much as well, because since I've been elected, you know, broadband has been a major thing, major work on. I don't know how many meetings we've been in on how can we, where do we start, and then, okay, well, how about at least the schools? And I remember, you know, in 17 when all of this come up, and it's like, you know, we got to try something, and if it's out there, and then the first one didn't work because it was too large and too big of a monster to tackle, and then you took it upon yourselves to break it down to make it a little smaller animal to tackle, and then 2 years later, here it is. And so, you know, like you say, what a blessing it is for our community to be able to offer this to the community. And it's a reality. It's not a, well, maybe in another year, you know, we'll get the grant funding, because that's the way things are here. It just, you know, it's not immediate. It's patience and perseverance, and more patience and perseverance. And so I just want to say thank you very much, and what a blessing it is to be able to have this in front of us today as an action item. A complete blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, you guys. With that, Tim, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept grants from the Universal Services Administration Company, USAC E-rate, and Arizona Department of Education state match funding in the total amount of up to $19,817,930.06 for Gila County Information Education Technology Consortium.
And I'll second that motion. So having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, you guys. Good job. That's a huge plus.
Congratulations, guys. You guys are great.
Thanks, Mylan.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to regular agenda item 2B, information discussion regarding the lack of wastewater infrastructure in the county areas of the Globe Miami community. In the report prepared by Kimley Horn based on a study of the wastewater infrastructure already in place. The study also included options for meeting wastewater requirements in the region. Mr. Minlove.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, when I came to the area, and this has been an ongoing challenge for this community for wastewater for years and years and years, decades even. And when I came to the community, recognized that I was hearing a lot of different angles, a lot of different stories, a lot of different issues related to wastewater in this area. So in working with Supervisor Humphrey, in having a discussion, came to the realization that we really needed to get down to what were the facts and get to the base level of what we actually had in this area. And so thankful to Supervisor Humphrey to have the foresight that we were able to go and bring in Kimley Horn to take a look at what we have and then give an unbiased opinion They've worked with all three entities, with Town of Miami, City of Globe, and Tri-City Regional Sanitary District. And so they've come today with what we believe are the facts and what we do have in place, and then some thoughts on how we can go, what direction we can take going forward. So contacted Ray Montoya at Kimley Horn and have been working with him for, I don't know, over a year probably to get this done, but we're so thankful that we are here to this point. We can let this report be made public, go out, and then we'll talk later about what the different options we have, how we move forward from this point. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, James. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, sir.
We're looking forward to hearing this. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Supervisor Humphreys, for this opportunity. Jeff Kellner is connected online, and he's got the ability to drive the presentation. But I wanted to go through a couple of things just to set the agenda. Like Mr. Menlove said, we worked with all three agencies, TRSD, Globe, Miami. Again, we've said this before, but I've got to commend them all for being open and willing to share some of their data, or all of their data with us, including site visits. Town of Globe, Town of Miami, or City of Globe, they allowed us to go visit their facilities and be able to help to evaluate them. The first things that we looked at, and Jeff will talk about it, is the work that all three were already doing, including the county with CAG, on the DMAs, on the sewer service areas, and actually helping to define what areas were under which group's jurisdiction. That's mapped out as well, and Jeff will get to that. And then just a quick update, we had originally presented 3 opportunities or 3 options and alternatives. We've added a 4th one, and Jeff will walk through the details of that. But just in summary, the 4th one is if TRSD hadn't been moving in any direction in particular, and that there wasn't a treatment plan or a treatment system in place planned, then what that alternative looks like between those service areas and the town of Miami and the City of Globe. So with that, I'll introduce Jeff. Jeff Kellner. He'll get through a couple of slides pretty quickly, and then we'll get to those alternatives. With those alternatives, there are some cost evaluations associated with each alternative. It's another thing that we talked about over our time over a year with Mr. Menlove. And so we took the costs that were presented by TRSD for their phased approach, 3 phases, and we evaluated 4 opportunities or 4 alternatives with those costs in mind. So with that, Jeff, I believe you're on right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. I will sit
again,
back.
hello all. Jeff Kellner with Kimley Horn. Appreciate you having both Ray and I here today. And with that, I'll get started on the presentation. Starting off with the beginning of this project, to summarize, we worked with both Miami, Globe, and TRSD to get all of their planning and present infrastructure information regarding wastewater, and we mapped that out for the first time for the region. In blue, we can see Miami wastewater infrastructure. In green, we can see Globe wastewater infrastructure. And in red, the TRSD planned infrastructure. Starting off, we mapped everything, and we noticed that there were areas of infrastructure overlap, that there were planned TRSD wastewater lines near or on top of existing Miami and City of Globe wastewater infrastructure. So starting off with this map, we're able to get a grasp of where everybody is, where they plan on going, and opportunities for shared service areas. And with that, we can continue on into the next step of our evaluation is we started to look at the available capacities at each of the existing Miami and City of Globe wastewater treatment plants. And we did this by receiving from both Globe and Miami the past 2 years of 2017 and 2018 of recorded wastewater flows. So in red, the red line is showing the existing permitted capacity of the Town of Miami treatment plant at 0.64 MGD, and the blue line is showing the recorded flow into that treatment plant from 2017 and 2018. And what we saw is that the average flow over that time was 0.14 MGD, so basically 0.5 MGD below their existing permit. So we're able to see that there was available flow in that sense of the average flow going to the treatment plant. moving to the City of Globe, again, showing the red line is the existing permitted flow of the City of Globe treatment plant at 1.2 MGD, and the average flow seen at the treatment plant between 2017 and 2018 was 0.54 MGD. So again, well below the existing permitted flow, so showing that there is some capacity there. Please note that on both the Town of Miami and City of Globe that there are areas of peak flow. As part of our evaluation, we did not go into details on what is the cause of that or do any research regarding what is the exact cause of that. It is assumed for this report that that is peak flow from some sort of storm event, rain event, which is getting into the system and causing those peaks. Now that we had a grasp of what is the existing infrastructure and planned infrastructure in the Gila County region or the Tri-Cities region, as well as what the existing flows are seen at both of the existing plants, we started to look at what are future flows, future populations to these plants, and what availability is there shown in these projections. Starting with the Town of Miami, again, their wastewater permit is at 0.64 MGD. We were able to use existing population projections from the Town of Miami to calculate population as well as flow rates for 2010, 2020, and 2030. We noticed that there's very little growth within this region, both in the Town of Miami and City of Globe, historically as well as projected. The total flow is being projected to be between 0.4 and 0.5 between 2020 and 2030, while the average recorded flow over 2017 and 2018 existing flow is 0.14. So our population projections are much more conservative than the actual value seen at the treatment plant. Moving to the City of Globe, we see a similar trend of little growth between 2010 and 2030, resulting in 0.75 to 0.8 MGD, and with that recorded average flow being well below that of 0.54, again showing that those population projections are rather conservative. Not only did we get the planning projections for the Town of Miami and City of Globe, we were also able to get the planning projections, population and flows for the TRSD service area, which we received from Pace Engineering. As we can see here with the arrows in red, that phase 1 is calculated to be at 0.24 MGD, phase 2 is calculated to be at 0.23 MGD, and phase 3 at 0.18. And as part of our evaluation, we understood that these were the flow rates that are coming from each of these phases. So any of our alternatives, the City of Globe or Town of Miami would need to have the ability to take on this additional flow and provide any improvements necessary to take on this additional flow, which we'll get into as we continue on. Before I continue, is there any questions on the existing assessment that we did?
Tim, you
If
have
not,
any
I will
questions?
continue forward.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions. I did it start on the projected growth, and so you have done that, and so that's good information to know what we're looking at over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I'm good to go,
Great.
Jeff. Go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, once we have gone through our alternatives, or our alternative assessment, where we were reviewing opportunities based off of possible connection points, existing infrastructure, near planned infrastructure, as well as existing flow paths and topography, we were able to come up with 4 different, as Ray Montoya said, wastewater service alternatives, and I'll give a brief summary of each of them. Alternative 1 is no action. That is TRSD, City of Globe, and Town of Miami continuing on their route of providing wastewater service to their residents as they have planned and as has been lined out by each of those entities. Alternative 2 is a regional operating group which will have phase 1 and phase 2 treated by the town of Miami, phase 3 treated by the city of Globe, and in this alternative there will be no TRSD wastewater treatment plants. But again, all residents within that greater TRSD service area will be treated, will have their wastewater collected and treated by an entity. So there was, in this alternative, there is no resident that is going without service. Moving on to alternative 3, we have a regional operating group B. In this scenario, phase 1 and phase 2 are treated by TRSD, so there will still be a TRSD treatment plant sized for both phase 1 and phase 2, and in this scenario, phase 3 will be treated by the city of Globe. And again, we'll go into a little bit more detail after this on what exactly that looks like for each of these alternatives. Alternative 4 is, in this scenario, phase 1 will be treated by TRSD. The treatment plant will be sized for phase 1, and phase 2 and phase 3 are treated by the town of Miami and city of Globe.
Any questions on that?
We had this map, excuse me?
Just making sure there were no questions yet. Thank you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
maybe I'll wait.
okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Got it. This is the map for alternative 1, and which is no action. So again, it's just showing the plan for 3 treatment plants and these 3 service areas which are very close to one another, and no alterations as planned from our report. Alternative 2, I tried to outline this a little bit. The key points to take away from here is that the green area in green, which is phase 3, is to be served by the city of Globe lift station and treatment plant over here in the northeast corner of the screen. The area in blue is phase 1 and phase 2 of TRSD, which is, as per this alternative, is to be served by the town of Miami and lift station and water reclamation facility, and there will be no TRSD water reclamation facility in this scenario. There are several outcomes in this scenario, and two of the larger are the removal of the TRSD water reclamation facility as well as the TRSD lift station. And again, because Miami and Globe will be taking on additional flow, as we see here in outcome 7, there will need to be improvements to the city of Globe and town of Miami lift stations and wastewater treatment plants.
So let me interrupt you, Jeff.
Any questions on this alternative?
Yeah, let me interrupt you. So again, Commissioners, the phase 1 and phase 2 refer to the TRSD phasing. So phase 1 and phase 2, and they get attributed
Correct.
to some collection area. And then phase 3 is that ultimate build out of TRSD and their phasing. And that also gets attributed because of topography, because of existing infrastructure that Globe has. It gets assigned or actually committed to that city of Globe area. And that's what Jeff is outlining there. Is there's no TRSD treatment plant, but all of the area is still sewered and serviced. Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Yes. Moving to alternative 3, we can see here that the area in green, again, is to be served by the city of Globe, and that's all of phase 3. The area here that are not outlined and have red wastewater lines will still be treated and served by the TRSD water reclamation facility. But in this scenario, we're able to reduce the capacity at both the lift station and treatment plant by having this service area here in green be conveyed and treated in Globe lift station and wastewater treatment facility. Moving on to alternative 4, similarly to alternative 1, phase 2 and phase 3 will both be treated by town of Miami and city of Globe, but in this scenario, we are assuming that the TRSD Phase 1 service area will be treated by the TRSD water reclamation facility. So in this scenario, there is also 3 treatment plants: the Town of Miami, City of Globe, and the TRSD water reclamation facility. In all of these scenarios, Town of Miami and City of Globe taking on additional flow will require additional analysis and additional improvements made to their infrastructure to ensure that they can take on that additional flow. And that was the starting point for looking at our cost assessments for these alternatives. And with that, we can start our cost alternatives. We received cost estimates from PACE Engineering on behalf of TRSD, and those cost estimates showed costs for the treatment plant, collection system piping, lift station, excavation and pavement restoration, service connections, as well as additional construction costs. So we, Kimley Horn, utilized those same unit costs for our alternatives to have as close as we can apples to apples comparison of these alternatives. As we can see in the no action alternative 1, the all phases total capital cost is $69.8 million, being 28 in phase 1, 20 million in phase 2, and 21 million in phase 3. For alternative 2, again, phase 1 through 3 are served by the City of Globe and Town of Miami. We broke down our costs to show the reductions in TRSD infrastructure costs, as well as the increased costs towards the Miami and Globe treatment plants and lift stations needed to take on this additional flow. In this alternative, we see that our all phases total capital costs would be $59.8 million, which is virtually $10 million less than the no action alternative. Alternative 3, in this scenario, phase 3 is served by the City of Globe. Phase 1 and 2 are still served by the TRSD water reclamation facility. So our costs for phase 1 and phase 2 in this scenario do not differ from the cost of phase 1 and phase 2 from the no action. But the change in cost is for alternative 3, phase 3. In that scenario, we will not have the final TRSD water reclamation facility increased capacity. So there will be a decreased cost there, as well as on a lift station and we've taken advantage of connection points to existing infrastructure. We're able to drive down costs for collection system piping. In this scenario, we get a total all phases capital cost of $65.8 million, which is roughly $4 to 5 million less than the no action cost. Our final alternative, Regional Operating Group C, phase 2 and phase 3 are served by the City of Globe and Town of Miami. Phase 1 is still treated by TRSD for phase 1. Similar to the other scenarios, we have increased costs to the Town of Miami and City of Globe wastewater treatment plants and lift stations by taking on this additional flow and from TRSD. In this scenario, our all phases total capital cost is $64 million. Before getting to our final slide, is there any questions on the cost or any of our process getting to those costs?
Tim, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
James? Yeah, we're good, Jeff. Keep going.
Great. And I just wanted to show a final summary of the alternative cost comparison. And again, showing alternative 1, no action, as outlined by TRSD in their preliminary engineering report, as well as additional cost estimates that we have received
The total capital cost for all three phases will be $69.8 million. Alternative 2, which has phase 1 and 2 treated by the town of Miami, phase 3 treated by the city of Globe, and no TRSD wastewater treatment plant, is estimated to be at $59.8 million. Alternative 3, phase 1 and 2 treated by TRSD, phase 3 treated by city of Globe, estimated at $65.8. And then finally, alternative 4, phase 1 treated by TRSD, and phase 2 and 3 treated by the town of Miami and city of Globe, estimated at 64. So between alternative 1 and alternative 2, 10 million. Between alternative 1 and alternative 3 and 4, roughly 4 to 5 million.
Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead,
I
Rick.
got a couple of
And
closing.
with that, yes.
Closing items real quick to summarize what Jeff is talking about. So, again, all of those numbers are not just capital improvement costs, but O&M costs for 20-year life cycle are included as well. So, operations and maintenance of a treatment plant for the life of the plant, or at least the first 20 years of it, are included. And then also, as you see, or you might ask the question, and we've gone through this before, but it's a summary, how were the alternatives defined and what separates one from the other? Really, one of the bigger things that stands out with one of the first things that we saw with the DMAs is that northern area. Jeff, if you go back to the service area map, we can kind of point it out. It just, one of the charges that the county asked was, how would you sewer this area? How would you service this area if you were just starting fresh set of eyes, 30,000 foot level? That area that we label TRSD phase 3, that part just jumps off the page. It says it's difficult to get that service area down to a new treatment plant down in the southern region, and it makes more sense that it either went to Globe or Miami. But those other alternatives, just so you know, and you'll see it in the report in more detail, is that TRSD in this planning study for phase 1, 2, and 3, they've had to include collection infrastructure that is actually butted up or adjacent to existing infrastructure, whether it's for Miami or for its Globe, or whether it's Globe. And that's why there's 4 alternatives, and they overlap each other in some extent, and they're a little bit cumbersome in other extents, but that's where they came from, and that's what really defined why we think there's 4 alternatives now, one of them being no action, and TRSD moves forward and does their treatment plan for all 3 phases. So thank you very much with that, and then Jeff and I are available here for follow-on questions and follow-on discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. James?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, now gets the complicated part, I guess, in that we have 3 separate governmental entities. Each one has their own jurisdiction, their own rights granted by statute. Each one of them has their own elected board that governs, board or council that governs their activities and all that they do. I guess key in all of this is Tri-City and what they have been doing. They have been working for years, maybe even a decade or longer, of trying to solve a problem that has been in that Tri-City area. And Melissa Bizon is the president of the Tri-City Regional Sanitary Board. And if it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, maybe he'd get her comments and her thoughts on this. The request for Kimley Horn was to, Tri-City has moved along. They've been moving along and actually have been taking some pretty good steps here in the last year or two to move this forward. Some of these main options that we asked Tri-City to put together may not be an option because of how far they've moved along. And I've assured Ms. Bizon that whatever we come up here, we just wanted the information, and that they as a board have a right to do what they want, as do the other councils for the town and the city. So, Mr. Chairman, with your authorization, perhaps Melissa, you'd share a minute with us. Is that all right?
Sure. You bet.
I don't know the rules.
James, one question while Melissa's getting ready here, and just so you can correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm on the right track, whatever, but I've been on the outside just looking in on this project. This is in Tim's district and everything like that, so I've been watching from the outside. But the whole theory behind Kimley Horn and the reason we had them come in here was that unbiased opinion. Because basically, everything else from a county standpoint, I mean, it's up to the boards and everybody else to make the final decisions on this. That is correct, right?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you, James.
The,
Go ahead.
When I came to this area, there was articles in the newspaper, and again, as I said, that there's all kinds of conflicting information. I didn't know what was right and what was wrong. Speaking with Supervisor Humphrey, we felt that this was a way that we could get to the facts. But as you're saying, each one has a separate board that the county has no jurisdiction over, other than that we are a third party very interested in this area as part of the county. There is a great need, and so we want to support the implementation of infrastructure, wastewater, whatever that might look like, and whatever is the best to serve the citizens of this area.
Okay, thank you, James. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning. Yes, I'm standing here today as the chairman of the board of Tri-City Sanitary District. I've been involved since, I think it was 2016, right before this last new election, I guess. So it may have been a little bit before this board took office. We, as a board, and I'm new, this is very complicated. Every step we take is a complicated, more complicated than I've ever experienced in any of the grants in 28 years. I know that the last board, when I was a new member, was working with town of Miami, trying to get to the point where we could be together. I'm not sure all the ins and outs. I know that I pulled up a stack of paperwork, letters that we tried to work with City Globe and Town of Miami to get some sort of interest and going together and moving together. Even in doing that, it's very complicated. Because the town council has say-so over their infrastructure and their wastewater treatment plant. The city council has say-so over the city manager and their infrastructure. And I know that moving forward that we try to get some kind of interest going, that so that ultimately if your constituents or the people you represent don't like what you're doing, at some level they can vote you out. You know, we know that. So I think that was the breaking point. There was a lot of old history that I wasn't aware of. And I can tell you that I am not hell-bent on a third plant. I know how it looks from the outside. You obviously know now how it pencils in for numbers and that kind of stuff. But I am hell-bent on getting a sewer system here. And this started in 2013. We need to move forward. Every day we lose money. Cost us more. Maybe the virus, some costs will come down now, people are saying. I don't know. I do know that our board has not had a chance to vet all these alternatives, that we need to look at each one and how it affects us, because numbers and maps, then you put human beings into it, and then what happens? Things change a little. Opinions change. And as I said, I'm not hell-bent on a third plant. What I want is a sewer system. And I want it maybe before I retire. So that's just my comment. I do want to save as much money as possible for people. Maybe it's something that we need to look at, but we have a meeting this afternoon of the TRSD board, and we'll start talking about this and see if we can't move along fairly quickly now that we have numbers. and maybe add the human part back into it. So anyway, that's my comment, and thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Did you have questions for Melissa?
I have no questions for Melissa. I've been in this hook, line, and sinker since I stood here. So, yeah, no, I have no questions. But later, I've got a lot of comments.
James?
I just might say that you may have noticed that there is some adjustment of numbers in what Tri-City does here. But you look at all those red lines on the map up there, all that is the infrastructure actually putting in the feeder lines, the collector lines. That's probably 70, 80% of, or even more than 80% of all the cost.
I would say it's 90.
90% of the cost is significant to just put all those red lines, those spider web lines into the ground and connect up all the homes to that is the very significant portion of the cost.
Melissa, thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Joe, you're here with us today. Is there anything you want to say on any of this? Not right now. Okay. All right. James?
Mr. Chairman, so what do we do with this? We've got this information. We can just go throw it on a shelf and it doesn't do anything for us. Or we can try to pursue this. As I was mentioning, there's actually 4 governments, counting the county here, who's not necessarily as invested as the other 3 entities, but we are definitely interested because these are residents of Gila County that are not being served as well as they need to be, and in order for there to be growth and development in the area. So my thought is, as we go forward, that we need to get all the entities involved in this, and that includes the 3 that are here, also Freeport-McMoran, BHP, the county, USDA, who has done the funding for Tri-City, and get us all together and have a discussion of what is actually feasible, as Melissa mentioned, put the human element into it, where are we at and what is actually feasible, what can be done going forward. So I've asked, trying to look for an attorney, actually. I have to request Mr. Beauchamp that we can hire an attorney that would be independent and bring all the entities together, look for common ground, and perhaps put together an IGA or a contract with the mines. One issue is that Freeport, and we love them, they contribute to the community, and I know that we've talked with Miami about this, that all of the water, the A+ effluent that comes from the Miami facility goes directly to Freeport, and they don't reimburse the city, the town, for that at all. And so the question is, if the Tri-City effluent goes to the Miami facility, what happens to that water? It's a valuable commodity, water in Arizona. And so a question of what happens to the water, who owns it, and what is the value of that. So a lot of questions, as Melissa said, as Ray said and Jeff said, a lot of questions, but I think that we continue the cooperation by having discussion, look what common knowledge we have, and see if we can't forge onward by looking at an IGA or something that we can all work together on.
So what I'm hearing you say, James, is that we're going to remain the go-between between all the other entities and try and just coordinate and see where this is going to go?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, this is a work session discussion. We certainly would love to have your thoughts. Those are my thoughts, that we continue to try to be that neutral third party that can step out and not, we're in favor of all 3 entities. We're not picking one over another, but we're in favor of all 3 and serving the citizens that's there. So yes, be the neutral third party that continues to see this through, continues to make the overall arrangements to keep this pushing onward.
So let me, and I know you got a lot of thoughts there, Tim, but I'm just trying to catch up here on this project. So who is the ultimate one that's going to pick the route?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, has to be each entity that we can craft an IGA. But as far as what Tri-City does, whether they have a treatment facility or they tie in with the others, for Tri-City, it's the Tri-City board. If for Town of Miami to allow Tri-City to tie in and utilize their infrastructure, Town of Miami and their council has to approve that. Same thing with City of Globe, that Globe has to, and their council would have to authorize or approve an IGA to take that wastewater into their facility.
So, Tim, did you want to chime in on something real quick? I
No,
got more
go ahead,
questions.
ask the questions you need
Okay,
to.
okay.
Like I said, I've been in this from the get-go. I have a lot of comments. I don't have many questions
Okay.
because all of my questions been answered because I've been with all the entities and all the meetings. So this is a work session, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So you this is for you to gain information. So
Thank you.
ask all the questions you want to.
So not long ago, Vertical Heights opted out, right?
Yes.
And so do we have any more entities looking at opting out or more subdivisions or whatever not wanting to be in this? Melissa?
Yes, Miami Gardens.
Okay.
Miami Gardens is within our district, but they're being serviced by Town of Miami.
Yeah, it's in the DMA of Tri-City, but being serviced by Miami.
And so like Vertical Heights through all this time of them being a part of this, they've been paying so much a month or so much a year for as part of this project?
Yes, sir.
So when an entity, a subdivision, whatever it is, opts out, are they entitled to some of that money back or?
Not as far as I know.
Yeah,
No.
I think that's a question for the county attorney or the.
Yeah, I think it's
or-
above my
or-
head, to
Or
be
the
honest with
county
you.
treasurer, yeah.
So, or above my degree.
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe they would be entitled to money back. I would put a friendly wager on it. But the reason is that the Tri-City was, sanitary district was organized and it's created within the boundaries that has been set, voted on by over half of the population. And while that time, that is the entity, that is organization that existed. Now, they went in and wanted to de-annex, and if that was approved, then from that point forward, then they are not a part of that district. So it's all going forward. It's not something that could be retroactive, that saying, well, we weren't a part of the district, we didn't want to be a part of the district. The fact is, they were part of the district. They paid their property taxes to finance what was going on. And now that it's changed, but it's just changed prospectively.
Okay, so then if we have Vertical Heights and let's say Miami Gardens opt out of this, and then when it comes to rates and things like that for the future, is that going to increase for the people who remain in it?
They were not included in the original PER. Vertical Heights they were within the district, but it was always going to be a very difficult situation. We couldn't service them.
But they were paying for it anyway, Melissa?
They were paying for it anyway.
Ouch. That's not real cool.
Paying the district.
I have a question with Melissa in the back. Can everybody hear Melissa? Because Marianne, if you cannot hear, then Melissa, if you'd come up for this discussion because we're on YouTube and Marianne and it's you've got some great information, but way in the back, I just wanted to be sure everybody understands the conversation.
The way I understand it, they were within the district boundaries, and so they were getting taxed on a yearly basis. But the PER, when it was first developed, back in, I think it was started in 2013, once the engineers looked at Vertical Heights, they didn't put them within the PER, so they weren't included in the units. So you go by units as far as, and they were never included in those units. And because Town of Miami, for Miami Gardens, those units were not included. So the monthly O&M costs would still remain the same. Those would not fluctuate. Unfortunately, yes, they were being taxed by us, and then and their sewer was charged from town of Miami.
Wow, okay. James, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something that's related to this with the USDA funding? It's all a matter of what is the cost going to be to the residents through property tax and usage fees. The way USDA operates on this type of loan and grant is that they determine what a typical household pays for wastewater. And based on that typical amount, you go from 1 to 50% that can be funded or financed or paid for locally. And it's the amount above and beyond that the community cannot pay for because of low population, low density, or whatever it might be. And so that amount above is what USDA has approved as a grant. So as this goes through, anything that has been termed to be local money or a loan, that is paid for first because the USDA has determined that the area, the region, the district can pay that particular amount based on the economics and population of the area. And so if they do this, and I don't know what the funding are, but if they go and they only use up 90% of the funding of this first round that it's approved, then the USDA is granting fewer dollars, that the loan amount is set first. And so as far as people opting in and out, that's always a thing that's continually moving, and it could have some impact, but USDA will continue to work with with Tri-City, I believe, to be able to find that prime level of what, according to industry standards and what they do nationwide, of how much is a loan and how much is a grant.
Thank you, Melissa. Tim, I'd love to hear your comments.
Well, I have a lot of them, and the thing of it is I got into this hook, line, and sinker when this first started because I ran on infrastructure and blight, and infrastructure is necessary in that area, and so I've been going to the Tri-City meetings quite a bit, except recently I backed off some, but off the get-go, and they've worked really, really hard to work with the USDA to get funding, and finally they got funding. And so, until they got funding, there was nobody at the Tri-City meetings. I mean, I was the only public there. And then they got funding, and all of a sudden now it got to be a big old rat's nest. And who could do what and why and how. And so anyway, it's my district. I have constituents in City Globe, Tri-City District, Town of Miami, and it's like I have no jurisdiction over any of those. The Mayor and Council of Miami, Mayor and Council of Globe, Tri-City, no jurisdiction, but we had to do something, and thankful for James when I sat and talked with him. It's like, everybody needs to make the best decision, but right now with the information that we have, it's hard to make a good decision. Because Tri-City's kind of holding the bag right now. They have a loan. Nobody else has money or a loan. And so the thing of it is this is fantastic information, and thanks Kimley Orn for understanding what we were looking for and presenting it to us. I've gone through this and how great it is to see where things overlap, where don't things overlap, where would be best. But now we have to do something with this information. And Tri-City's going forward. And the thing of it is everybody says, okay, it's less money to not have a third wastewater plant. Well, maybe, but 90% of the cost is the plumbing, not the wastewater plant. And if USDA says, well, unless we have a plant for all that plumbing,
to put sewer in, we're not going to fund the plumbing. Then guess what? Then Tri-City doesn't have any money either. So is it worth $5 million in the end over and above for the third plant and the funding and to get the plumbing in and then work entities in with Miami and Globe? So we have an awful lot of good information, and what I'm grateful for very much so is the team that has worked with this, because, you know, in a long time, nobody ever sat down at the same table, and we've had the town of Miami, we've had the city of Globe, we've had Tri-City, and the county. We've all sat down at the same table because, come to find out, when we started this, nobody knew what their DMAs were. Nobody knew where their demographics were. So all these entities sat down at the same table. It says, okay, that line's fine here, or we'll do this line here. So all of that got taken care of, and that's a great thing. And so while we have this team together, while we have interested mayors and councils and supervisors, and cooperation with USDA, here's some money. This is the best chance ever to be able to help our community with infrastructure, because everybody knows there's a lot of places there that nobody's living in because there's no sewer. It's failed cesspools or septic tanks. It's an older area getting worse. And so I have no jurisdiction. We have no jurisdiction, but here's some great information. And I hope that the same team that has sat down at the table and got DMAs together and has gotten this far will sit down with this information and create what's best for the community, because that's all I can do is help furnish it with you and kind of be referee and help, and maybe even get an attorney to help with DMAs and where things need to go, because I think this is critical for our community to grow and have better infrastructure, is for everyone to be treated with sewer. Because if you're in the Globe DMA right now and you're not on sewer, this is an opportunity for you to get there. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful for all the time, energy, and effort. And have we created a lot of problems to be worked out? You bet we have. But they're good problems to work out, because we're further now than we ever have been. And but anyway, can we all be prepared to what's coming? No, but can we all sit down and take things step by step with an open mind that let's do what's best for the community? And if Tri-City doesn't have a plant and there's no funding, who's going to fund the $60 million?
Well, that's a question. When you said that brought up something. So if there's not a plant built, there is no money through USDA. Is that right?
I've asked Jeff Hayes, and Melissa asked Jeff Hayes that very question of, is that first wave of funding that's been approved by USDA and includes that first plant up there on the south end of the map, we didn't get a solid yes or no. I guess I would terminate it, describe it as we may not want to open up this can of worms. So it's what Supervisor Humphrey is saying, that if the funding's there and it's solid, it's already been approved, it includes a facility down there at the south end of the district, that may be the best option. But now that we've got this information, we need to pursue it, need to look at all the different options where when we met with Tri-City last week, asked that that option be included, because there's not being a decision made at this point. We just want information.
But we can't pursue it either way. We have no jurisdiction.
No, I
over
know.
Tri-City.
Yeah, no, I got that.
And Tri-City, they have every right to go ahead with phase one.
Right.
They're approved for phase one. Have every right to.
But this confuses me a little bit. I think Tri-City or somebody has the right to get an answer out of USDA and say, because basically, if they're not going to fund any money unless there's a plant built, then what did we do with this? This was a lot of options and a lot of alternatives. That's really good work here. But, I mean...
Mainly for phase 2 and 3, I think.
I get that, but it's almost like if that's the case with the dollars, the direction's pretty much already set in place. Am I right or am I wrong?
Mr. Chairman, there's, Tri-City has funding. It's been approved. Tri-City has accepted the funding. USDA has not given a definitive answer to the question of, is that third wastewater treatment facility absolutely necessary? And that's why we have to go and pursue with them until we get a hard and fast answer from them of, no, this funding is all tied together. It has to go forward in a package as is, or can it be amended? I don't know the answer to that. Haven't gotten a definitive answer from USDA on that.
Right, because, the big part of what Tim's talking about is absolutely true. There needs to be something done, and I totally agree with that and all that. But it seems strange that somebody won't step out there and give you a yes or no. I mean...
Politics.
Yeah.
It's coming very soon, coming to that absolute one way or the other that Tri-City has to go. That is coming very soon.
And Mr. Menlove's right. Jeff Hayes has said that we need to vet these alternatives, talk about these alternatives as a TRSD, because right now the funding is approved for our current PER, our engineering report, which includes a plant. So, and they've said, here's your letter of conditions, yes, move forward. But they haven't said, but if you want to change it right now, you want to do something else, we're going to pull the money back. They haven't said that. And I think as a board this afternoon, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that between ourselves, and then we're going to get Jeff Hayes and turn up the heat a little bit on his feet and say, you need to say whether we can move forward, because we certainly as a community do not want this money to go back someplace else and then have town of Miami or city of Globe have to start chasing the dollars to upgrade their systems.
No.
That's what we don't want.
Right.
Yeah, it's taken 8 years or better to get this money. And if we don't take the opportunity for this money and it goes back to the federal government, we don't get it. It's not ear tagged for us once they take it back.
And we need Mr. Hayes to say that, one way or the other. And we need, as a board, to vet these other alternatives, because I've talked to Supervisor Humphrey before about this, and in a different administration, totally different from up here, to say, we need some help. We need some outside eyes saying, the human beings are going back and forth like this, and we need some help, and we need you guys to say something, not crickets. And that's what we were getting. We were getting crickets over here. And so I very much appreciate what everybody's done for us. And because there's been a lot of time and money invested in this, we need to take a hard look at it and see what we can do. But we still need to do something.
I agree.
I don't mind, on a personal level, as a board member, I do not mind my sewer going to Miami. I don't care. I want the community to have some sewer. I got on this board because I kept having to turn people down with their cesspools and their small yards. And I've done a program up at Coles Ranch at some point, or years ago, with alternative systems. They're very expensive. There's just no way getting around that. That's not feasible. And those lots There's no way you barely get an alternative system on some of those lots. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I do think we need to look at it as a board because there's time and money invested in this, and I'll be talking to the board this afternoon.
Yeah, and I appreciate everything that your board is doing and the difficulties they go through, and I support anything and anything else I can do. Like I say, this has been a long journey just getting this information, and it's good information, and I hope there's something we can do with it, because I mean that's the main plumbing. And then people are saying, well, what's it going to cost me to get plumbing to my house? Well, being that we're a Colonia, that's going to be paid for, from my understanding. So this is
Well,
even a
for
better
phase one,
opportunity
yes.
to go through.
It was
'cause-
always part of the PER.
Yeah, it was
that-
always part of the PER, because the thing of it is all you're going to end up with a sewer bill at the end of the month. You're not going to, because the city of Globe, when they went up through Skyline and places like that, the individuals had to pay for the sewer to come to their house. Well, in this process, being we're colonial, that doesn't cost anything. I mean, that the government is going to come in and run the plumbing from this plumbing design to the individual homes and abandon whatever system they have, whether it's a cesspool or septic tank, and run the new plumbing at no cost to the homeowner or a cost to the loan for the grant to put in this main plumbing. Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it's part of
So,
the.
yeah, so then when we look at all those lines on there, that's not just up different streets and driveways. That's gonna include going to every
Every
residence.
single
Yeah, that
individual.
is up streets and driveways, but
Right.
the
There's more than
arms
that.
off of that go to the house
Right.
are not going to cost the homeowner
Yeah.
anything, or the loan. The loan's for the plumbing, and not to the home.
Thank you, Melissa. You ready, Joe, or are you good?
Joe Heatherly with the town of Miami. This has been a long process, and I've been involved in this since I first got to the town of Miami, which is almost 6 years ago. And to compliment Melissa and some of the existing board members, they've done a hell of a job. But initially, all I can guess is that Tri-City was not being very transparent on a lot of fronts. There are a lot of discussions, I'm not going to mention the names, but with several organizations that asked me, could they hook into an existing main line? I said, sure you could. Well, Tri-City said we couldn't. I said, sure you can. You can come in right behind the hospital, and you can hook in right to the main line. Probably take you a few months to do that. They were told they couldn't do that. They're still one of the ones now that want to know why. If you take everything in, looking at that drawing right there, Claypool, why would you put in a lift station right behind Walmart and then pump it to a wastewater treatment plant when everything can be fed by gravity to the town of Miami right now? Why would you incur those costs in phase one? If you looked at it, I mean, I can only guess that the reason they put it into phase one, because they knew it would never go in phase 2 or 3. So they had to put it into phase one. Initially, during discussions, and USDA was in on 3 of them, there was always the claim from Tri-City that they were going to take the customers from Miami Gardens, Miami High School, and the plaza that is where Judy's is, where Tractor Supply is, because that was in Tri-City's DMA, and they were going to take those from the town of Miami. And I told them, that's fine. If you can talk USDA into doing that, that's wonderful. But one of us will default on a loan if that happens. USDA got wind of that they went to 3 meetings, and they were told, they being Tri-City, that you cannot take those customers. We will not allow a study to be done where the customers were included and justified 8 years ago in the economic benefits there, and then include that on this. And that's when they changed their PER. There's been lots of other things. The owner of the land at Bechtel Track, we've tried numerous times, and people are going to say, well, Miami's saying this because they're going to get a benefit out of this. I'm not going to deny that that's not true, but we're also looking at treating water for somebody else right now. So is that the only option for the town of Miami? No, it's not. The town of Miami, 9 months ago, signed a letter of support for the Tri-City project, and so did the City of Globe. Both municipalities understand the importance of the unincorporated parts of Gila County, especially southern Gila County, that it is a dire need to have a sewer collection system put in place. The people that currently live there, they can't sell their homes unless it's for cash. People are just walking away from things, and it's a terrible thing right now. The biggest concern that I know that I have in looking at this is if phase 2 and 3 and people start opting out of this and they don't go and into phase 2 and 3 don't go into the overall project, then what happens to the economics of this? And if there's a bankruptcy, my guess is the county would have to take it over. But now the county can't operate a sewer utility. So that's going to create a problem. And so that's why at the last meeting, Freeport, I know BHP wasn't there, and the only reason that USDA was at that meeting is because I told them there was a meeting. Otherwise, they weren't invited. And this is what has happened for a long time now. You couldn't get all of the entities to come and sit down together. So I applaud the county supervisors and James for twisting arms and getting all these people down here. And if you're going to go forward with this thing, whether you do option the first one, the second one, the third one, or the fourth one, you still are going to have to get people to sit down and negotiate something. And when the people negotiating on behalf of Tri-City, or at least in the past, said it was illegal to turn off or shut off a sewer system. Really? I mean, does it all the time. So do all entities throughout the state. But Tri-City said they couldn't do it. I said, well, how are you going to do the economics then? Well, it's illegal to do it. So I think some of the things that are being said between individual parties are not being conveyed to everybody else. I know there's been lots of meetings at Tri-City where their constituents, if that's the right word, within the Tri-City district, they feel left out because they haven't been transparent with the people that live in that district. There was a vote 2 years ago, and it was worded, let's just say, real tricky as to what you were voting for, but it went to the people who live in that district, giving the authority for the Tri-City Board to negotiate with the town of Miami, and they were supposed to have meetings to talk to the public about that.
Mr. Chair, I think this is
They didn't
turning
have
into
that.
kind of a bash rather than a communication. But that's just my opinion, and I thought I would offer it.
Thanks for your opinion, Tim, but as a work session, I think we're all entitled to hear whatever parts of this we need to hear. I mean, I think the bottom line is we have finally come to a point in this project, it sounds to me like, where a lot of the history is behind us, I would say. Wouldn't you, Joe? I mean, as far as all the entities coming together and now being with us in the middle, basically, being able to work and coordinate with all the other sides.
And Supervisor Humphries, I wasn't trying to bash. People have asked, and this is what I'm telling them, what I know. And if people want to take it as a bash, then maybe they need to look in the mirror and take some ownership for what they did or didn't do. And I don't want to see Gila County or the residents in that area get stuck with a bag of goods that somebody potentially could really be sorry for if there were other options that could have been looked at prior to that.
And so right here with this right here is where my big hopeful idea is this, from what little I know of it, this lays out 4 alternatives that probably most people wouldn't even have normally thought of. Would you say, Joe? I mean, this gives you more than just tying into Globe or Miami or building a new plant. But besides that, it also lays out the financial part of that, which I think has been a big question in a lot of people's mind too, on all that. So when I see this coming from Kimley Horn, and like I said, from the outside looking in, when we agreed for that contract, whatever it was, 2 years ago, that's what I was hoping would be the outcome, was right here. So
now you have the alternatives, and now a decision could be made by Tri-City and Gila County as to what different options you may want to look at and possibly fund, or what avenue you want to go down.
Gila County's not going to fund any of it. We don't have a choice in which one of those are chosen. That's up to you guys in Tri-City or Tri-City, and whether there's IGAs involved or not.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with us.
But
We just paid for the information for you guys to be better informed.
But there's a reason why the town of Miami, there's been studies done. We've been trying to go back and look in the mid-'70s. Because why would somebody build a plant, say for the town of Miami, that has a design capacity of 640,000 gallons when their average throughput was 140,000 gallons? The reason that there were spikes in there is there was enormous infiltration. And that's why over the past 4 or 5 years, the town of Miami has spent $25 million. That's in both a grant and a loan from USDA to put in a new collection system throughout the whole town. New laterals and everything for $25 million. That dropped the spikes down to now where it's no greater than 200,000 gallons. On average, over the past year, we've been probably running at about 125,000 gallons a day. So when Freeport did this and built that plant, they built that plant to allow for this expansion and this inclusion. And so, if somebody's going to do some studies, they should have looked at all of this thing. But, I've been in this community long enough that everybody wants to have their own because they think it's great. Well, nowadays, we can't afford to have our own facilities, separate facilities. We're in too small of a community. We need to learn how to coexist and share things. And with that, I'll stop bashing.
thanks, Joe. The thing of it is, and I think the bottom line is between the entities, Globe, Miami, us, Tri-City, I hope it all stays on track and comes together and we see it through in the best direction we can. Hopefully there's some leeway on some of that money, Melissa, and you're not just bound by what it was, okay? But it definitely takes a partnership with everybody. And I'll be the first to admit, we don't achieve things as individual entities. We'll achieve more by everybody being on the same plate. So, James, did you have something?
I'll just add that I knew there's a long history. I'm new to the community, and I really don't care about the history. And I hope that we can put that to bed. It's my intent by getting an independent engineering company to come in and take a look at it
Right,
so that we can say the past is the past and we're going to go forward.
right.
We're going to get as much valid information as we can, that we can make decisions prospectively going forward that are informed and able to make the smartest decisions we can for everybody.
Yeah. You know, and I do love the history, the good and the bad. You know, and when you look back at things that were designed and built in the 70s, Joe, like you said, back there when they built something to that size, they obviously had the foresight looking ahead for whatever they thought. But this is what I like about work sessions. I'll tell you guys that, and everybody that's watching me on YouTube right now. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. When we get in there in work sessions and we have projects, that's what I like to see. I like to see it, all of it. You know, everything from a report like this that is outstanding to whatever else it leads into. Because somewhere along the way, there does have to be a decision made, and I'm hoping and praying it's going to be the right one, and that Melissa can see this through, and everybody out there can have sewer hookups. Tim, you want to have something else to say before I shut her down?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm good.
Okay, yes.
One thing, that if Tri-City's having a board meeting this afternoon, do you have enough materials from the study, whatever you need to? Okay.
Because we can print more off for you, Melissa, or whatever.
No, I think I'm fine.
Okay.
Everyone will have a copy of it, and hoping all the boards on right now.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, just Kimley Horn, Ray, and Jeff, appreciate all their effort. They have put a lot of work into this,
Absolutely.
and they have taken that 30,000-foot level view to be independent and give us the information we need, so I appreciate that.
Yep. And I see the quality there and what you've done, so definitely thank you. Go ahead, Ray.
Just not to hold everybody up, but likewise, I mean, honestly, we started this in the beginning, but all entities have been more than cooperative from TRSD, Town of Miami, City of Globe, the county. Yep. It was really helpful that they just came to the table and provided as much information that we asked for. So thank you very much from us to them as well.
Thank you. And make sure and thank Jeff for us, too. Okay, I'm going to move on to a call to the public. Cheryl, do you have anybody up there?
No, sir.
And we do not hear. So, Tim, do you have any updates for us?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good.
Okay, I got a little bit. So Thursday, May 21st, I sat in on the CSA board meeting. James, you were on that meeting, did a good job on your manager's rundown. And sounded like all the budget and all that went through and all voted on, so that was all good. Our public lands conference calls were canceled, and everything was just kind of up in the air right now. The PILT fly-ins and whatnot for later on, it looks like it's probably going to be canceled just because they're not allowing people in there, visitors and things like that. But PILT is funded. Secure Rural Schools hopefully is on track there too. So summer work program, we have over 70 applications. Kathy told me apparently we had 4 or 5 more kids apply here that came in late. So roughly about 75 applications. We only have 27 positions. So, James, what departments in the county did not take kids?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to take a look at that. I'm not sure.
The ones that didn't, we need to really suggest that maybe they take at least one, and see what we can do here. There's a lot of kids out there needing some work.
I know Kathy did get that information. I'll get with her, and we can take a look at which departments have not participated.
Kathy kind of gave me a heads up on the departments that did not take kids. I was hoping you were going to spit it out on the air. So I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, let's get our public works to get in there if we can and take 2 more like they did, north and south. That would be a big help right there. I know that public works is huge, and they've got the projects and whatnot to help this. That would be really, really good. Be greatly appreciated, since especially this time of the year. So
And we still have the IGA with Town of Miami, right? You guys still do hire a few with our help? Okay, good.
yeah, and so Star Valley is not taking kids, and Young Public School right now is kind of in a little bit of a turmoil, and I don't believe they're going to take kids. Now, I do understand if somebody last year had kids, but this year it's just too much with the COVID crud and all that going on that they don't want to take that chance or deal with it. I understand that. So, I got a little give, I guess. The Tono National Forest is going on with their YCC crew. They are going to go through with that, and apparently everybody in the forest, all the staff are really excited about it, and I hope what that's going to lead into is that we will see YCC crew here in Globe next year. That's what I'm really hoping and pushing for. So we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I think that was it. So thank you all for being here. Kimberly Horn, Ray, thank you guys so much, and Melissa, thank you. Hang in there. We'll hopefully see that project through. So with that, I'll adjourn this meeting and see everybody later. Thanks, Dave.